this. And so let's begin, if you're okay, and we'll quickly express to Jan what it has been all about in this really beginning. So basically, we're gonna have 1 hour, just because I was feeling like the timing we had for the principles was a bit tight, and we could only see the Mollison principle. And for Pietro, it's completely normal. Like the Holmgren principle are more aiming towards like introduction to permaculture than more advanced PDC. Nonetheless, we were a certain number to feel like it could be interesting to discover them. So we'd love to begin with a small story, which takes us back into the mythological time of Greece, of ancient Greece. And in Greece, there was a beautiful little city that was going pretty well on a beautiful hill, not so far away from the sea. And this was a really promising city. And two gods were really willing to shelter it and to be the god for this place, le patronné in French. It was Poseidon on one side and Athena on the other. And the king from this city was really flattered and said, wow, that's cool. But as there was some kind of electricity in the air between Poseidon and Athena, he said, okay, maybe we could organize a contest and the god who wins will win this city. And they both agreed. And the contest was about offering a gift to the city and choosing what gift will be the most beneficent and beautiful. And Poseidon began, and he took his trident, and on the top of the hill, he created a surging of water, huge. So all the people were pleased, like water, etc. They went and they tasted the water, and it was salty water because Poseidon was rolling over the seas. So it was nonetheless a really powerful demonstration. And then Athena came and just came with a baby tree, a baby olive tree. And she dig a small hole and she put the tree there and she say, with this, humans from this city will have fruits to eat, oil to make, shelter, shade, wood, something to climb on for their children. It's a pillar for their civilization. And the king and all the inhabitants say, okay, Athena wins, and we will call this city by the name of Athens. And it's a beautiful, I feel, story that shares maybe the first story of permaculture in history, because it's exactly how permaculture is, and the mindset of permaculture is about arborescence. It is about making like nature from one gift to our system, to our design, to our land, multiple functionalities. Because if each element has multiple functionality and we draw the connection between the various elements, instead of having a rough and simple few lines here and there, you have a really dense spider web, which is the basis of resilience. And the more the network is dense, and the less it is susceptible to break down in case one element has a problem. So all this, as Pietro said, has been not discovered, but has been observed mostly in the Tasmanian forests of this island at the south of Australia by Bill Mollison, and it's his thesis students, David Holmgren, and we had some sharing and the transmission by Pietro from the Mollison's principle. And David Holmgren wrote in another book 12th principle, which is he explained are sustainable pathways for our societies. Here is Michael. And those sustainable pathways are pure and direct biomimicry. So they are directly inspired by years of observation of natural systems and trying to essentialize some pathways, some principles that could be replicated in the various areas where permaculture design can be used. Of course, permaculture design can be used on land, on agricultural projects, even if permaculture, agriculture, you remember Pietro said it's not the same, it can be used on soil and land, etc. But it could be used on a huge variety. And in the same stream, David Holmgren also took the pathway beyond sustainability and applied them to also what he called the permaculture flower, which is 7 petals of a flower that describe how permaculture can be used on land and financial governance, on education, on well-being and spirituality, on eco-construction and the various techniques around the living of men. And so there are 7 petals where permaculture design, the 3 ethics and all the principles can be applied. And the whole is basically a civilization. And it's a culture of permanence. It's not an agriculture of permanence. It's a whole culture of permanence, like we said in the first module. So that was a brief introduction to those principles. And to work on them, I love that we may be like, someone disappeared? Or are we 7? We were 7, we should be 7, but Jan maybe arrived and left again, so he may be returning pretty soon. So you may be able to work on pairs. And so right now, I will create breakout rooms and I will let the Zoom gods decide who is with who. And I will play the role of Jan until he is here. So I will be with one of you. And I will right now. Oh, okay, I understand. Thanks, Christian. And I will right now in the chat box that you can open below, chat discussion. I will copy and paste the principles in English and in French. And maybe some of you open the small PDF I created. So first of all, here are the Holmgren principles. In English. Ooh. Okay. Nice. You also get the pictures. And now the same in French. Let me know if anyone didn't manage to check the discussion box and see the principles. Everyone could see?
Oui.
Perfect. All right, so we will go into breakout rooms. The idea would be that you pick 2 principles that you feel are alive for you, that you would love to, maybe you don't understand them at all and you want to understand them more. Maybe you feel a lot of life for them and you feel you have a lot of things to say about it, whatever, but just choose 2 principles and we take about 7 minutes to discuss together and try to unveil a little bit what's this principle and how do we understand it in a broad meaning. And also if you can find any kind of example, maybe that you saw in the garden or that you saw on your garden, on your project, or that you saw on any kind of permaculture center that you visited, or anyhow, if you could find a beautiful example of the principle, it would be tremendous. And if the principle doesn't exist, like if the example doesn't exist, if you can think of one way that we could apply this principle. For anyone, est-ce qu'il y aurait besoin d'un un petit coup de français pour les consignes ou est-ce que tout va bien? Mika? Fais-moi signe, Mika.
It's okay, thank you, Olivier.
C'est bon? C'est bon pour tout le monde? Alors c'est parti. You will be invited to click and to join the breakout room. And at the end, I will call you guys back and you will also be able to click and join. Something I don't understand. We are six, right? So there's someone I don't see. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, we're 6 for now. Oh, rejoins. Ok. Et ben voilà, on va parler français. Ah, mais je t'entends pas.
Alors, je suis à toi
Input.
dans une minute. Je tape un petit.
Ouais.
Voilà, j'ai fait ma petite annonce et on est prêt. Est-ce
Ok.
que tu as repéré des principes qui te diraient?
Oh là là. Euh, je sais pas trop. Je te laisse choisir.
Ah, alors moi, je t'avoue que je les connais bien. Ça te dirait pas de...
Alors attends, tu me vois plus parce que je retourne dans le PDF. C'est plus simple que.
Ouais. Sinon, je te les
Ben,
remets là. Je les ai
non,
remis dans le
t'embête pas.
dossier.
Je les ai là devant
Ok, ça
les
marche.
yeux.
Ok.
Écoute, euh, il y a. Alors, un qui m'intrigue, voilà, je dirais, c'est le design from patterns to details.
Ouais.
Je voudrais bien creuser là-dedans.
Ouais. Ok.
Et allez, on va prendre apply self. Non, non, c'était pas. Oui, c'est ça. Apply self-regulation and accept feedback. Ça, c'est pas très clair pour moi. Donc, le 4 et le 7.
Ok.
Je sais pas
Super.
ce que ça va donner, mais voilà. Ah bah, tu me les as
Bah,
remis, merci. Ok.
je finis d'envoyer les principes à tout le monde. Ça, tout le monde les a bien. Et c'est parti. Le 4.
Le 4, c'était le from patterns to details. Voilà.
Ouais.
Alors, en français, je
Ok.
sais plus ce que c'est.
Est-ce que tu te rappelles ce que c'était les patterns?
Oui, ce sont les formes géométriques là qui émergent d'elles-mêmes en fait.
Exactement. Ouais, l'exemple que je prends souvent avec les enfants, c'est le chou romanesco, c'est la tornade, c'est la galaxie, c'est l'évacuation de l'eau dans un siphon naturel ou pas. Et donc, c'est le signe de la circulation d'une énergie, grosso modo, avec toujours cette idée d'entropie, syntropie, etc. Et puis, si on va dans un désert, on va s'apercevoir que du côté d'une dune, il y a plein de petites vagues et de l'autre, il n'y en a pas. et qu'il y a des vagues sur l'océan, etc. Et tout ça, ça va être le passage d'une énergie relativement éthérée comme le vent. Et puis on a, par exemple, on a notre système nerveux, où on a les réseaux mycorhiziens dans le sol, où on a la distribution des galaxies dans l'univers. Et tout ça, c'est la forme de réseau. Et c'est quand justement tu te rappelles cette idée d'entropie, quand une énergie concentrée est distribuée dans tout le système, se forme ce type de pattern-là. Et donc,
Mm.
cette fameuse phrase d'Hermès Trismégiste, est en bas comme ce qui est en haut, est en haut comme ce qui est en bas, à toutes les échelles du vivant, il y a des grands motifs, des grands patterns qu'on va trouver. À la fois, ils sont une inspiration, ils sont une forme de beauté, de géométrie sacrée, ils sont aussi une forme de pragmatisme. C'est-à-dire que si par exemple je cherche à distribuer de l'énergie, je peux essayer de réinventer la roue et y aller par plein de motifs designés uniquement, entre guillemets, par l'homme, ou je peux utiliser ce qui a déjà été créé par la nature et qui prouve déjà son efficacité dans la nature. Parce que si, après 14 milliards d'années dans cet univers, la nature procède comme ça, c'est a priori qu'elle a essayé d'autres méthodes et que celle-là, c'est la plus efficiente et la plus efficace. Il y a ça, et du coup, comme tu sais qu'en permaculture, on va toujours, ça c'est un principe de Mollison, on va toujours chercher le plus grand changement à partir de l'effort le moindre. Donc,
Mhm.
cette idée de surfer, en fait, c'est l'idée de surfer, de s'appuyer sur tout ce qui est déjà. Donc, on va s'appuyer là-dessus. Et donc, on va partir des motifs.
Mhm.
Mais les motifs, ça a aussi d'autres choses. C'est, imagine par exemple le jardin ou imagine d'autres choses. Qu'est-ce que ça pourrait être les motifs pour toi?
Euh, oh là. Euh,
Quand tu
quel-
arrives au jardin la première fois, qu'est-ce que tu as fait?
Qu'est-ce que j'ai fait? Je suis allée dans la cuisine.
Ouais.
Je suis allée voir où il y avait des gens. Ouais.
Ok.
Alors, mais pour revenir nos motifs, c'est après, là, c'est du motif au détail. C'est-à-dire qu'on part du motif pour approfondir, en fait.
Oui.
Et on
Oui.
va dans le détail du motif. Donc,
Oui. Oui, déjà. Carrément. Puis de toute façon, je peux te dire, c'est qu'il n'y a pas une bonne façon de les regarder et une mauvaise, hein. C'est que tout est juste, hein, mais carrément.
donc, tu veux me dire, quel est le motif du jardin? C'est un peu ça ta question?
C'est, oui, voilà. Qu'est-ce que ça serait le motif du jardin et quel serait le grand motif, les grandes formes qu'on voit au niveau du jardin?
Ouais, d'accord. Alors, sachant que j'ai peut-être pas vu tous les coins du jardin, mais ce qui me vient, c'est plutôt une étoile.
Ok.
Et encore, parce que j'ai l'impression que, bah justement, la cuisine, enfin, là où on se réunit, hein, que ce soit la cuisine ou le dôme, ça part en branches.
Hmm.
Mais j'ai pas été vers le bas encore tellement. Mais ça part vers le haut, ça part vers le carter, ça part vers l'entrée. Donc, il y a comme un centre avec des... Enfin, voilà, pour moi, c'est une étoile. Mais
Hmm.
peut-être pas très régulière parce que il manque le bas. Mais en tout cas,
Hmm.
c'est ce qui me vient.
Super. Euh, on dit toujours que tu sais, le principe de base de la permaculture, l'entrée dans toute réflexion de permaculture, ça va être l'observation. Et
Hmm.
effectivement, on va commencer à observer les courbes, les reliefs, les formes de ce terrain. Et des fois, c'est très spectaculaire. Moi, là où je me suis fait former, on avait eu la première partie du cours là-dessus. Et je m'étais baladé sur le lieu, j'avais observé, et tout de suite, j'avais vu qu'en fait, c'était un peu comme une espèce de quasiment un cercle avec un petit peu en concentrique, tu vois, des cercles de plus en plus petits. Et ça ressemblait
Hmm.
exactement à une corde d'abondance. Et du coup, bah, l'idée de partir du motif, ça veut dire qu'en fait, on va pas regarder ça en 2D depuis un plan. On va pas faire de l'analytique où on va regarder zone par zone en oubliant tout le reste. On va s'appuyer sur la forme d'ensemble parce que ça va vouloir dire la circulation de certaines énergies ou du vent ou le stockage ou voilà, ça va induire plein de choses dans lesquelles on va chercher de s'appuyer dessus plutôt que
Hmm.
plutôt que de commencer par le détail. Alors, j'ai besoin d'une zone maraîchère, puis j'ai besoin d'une serre, etc., etc. Tout ça,
Mhm.
c'est considéré par le design comme des détails. D'abord, la forme générale. Et je
D'accord.
rappellerai pas, je vais pas aller trop loin parce qu'après, on va les revoir tous ensemble et tout. Mais il y a
Mhm.
une image qui nous explique relativement facilement pourquoi, en fait, on va partir des grands détails, des grands motifs pour aller vers les détails. Et donc, c'est comme si
Ok.
on partait vraiment de la forme d'ensemble pour qu'elle se
Mhm.
précise. Et là, tu as vu l'étoile, et ça, c'est hyper intéressant. La forme d'ensemble du jardin, ça serait peut-être plus un triangle, une espèce de pointe. Et il y a cette idée de motif aussi d'escalier. Tu sais, un petit peu à degré, un petit peu
Je
comme
voudrais le
le
voir
petit
de
couple.
haut parce que là, c'est comme si j'avais pas la vision
Ouais.
d'ensemble encore du
Non,
jardin.
mais
Tu vois, je voudrais le voir de, de
par
haut.
contre, ce que tu as vu, c'est le design. Le design est effectivement en étoile parce que depuis la cuisine, on part un peu en étoile, un peu comme, comme depuis la place de l'étoile vers différentes choses. Et
D'accord.
il y a même un petit triangle intéressant entre le dôme, l'agora et la cuisine qui constituent un peu les trois zones les plus utilisées. Donc, on va
Hmm.
dire que ces trois zones-là constituent ce qu'on appellerait en permaculture une zone zéro, c'est-à-dire un centre. Et
L'agora, c'est non, c'est pas le dôme, l'agora.
l'agora, c'est, on n'a pas été trop parce qu'on est encore un peu en hiver, mais c'est cette espèce d'endroit avec un tableau, les chaînes, les canapés palettes, etc.
Ah oui, à plus vers l'entrée.
Ouais,
D'accord.
un petit peu plus.
Ok.
Ça, c'est les zones les trois zones les plus utilisées du jardin. Et à trois, tu vois, elles font un petit triangle qui est vraiment le cœur un petit peu du jardin. Et ça va avoir beaucoup, beaucoup, beaucoup d'importance par la suite. Ça, on parlera du zonage, mais je laisserai un petit peu. Voilà, on va voir s'il y a des principes qui en parlent, mais sinon, voilà, on laissera aussi la découverte pour la suite.
D'accord. Ok.
Ok, est-ce que ça va un tout petit peu mieux sur l'idée de designer en partant des grands motifs et de l'observation pour aller petit à petit vers ce qui est de plus en plus le détail concret de chaque zone, etc.
D'accord, parfait. Ok, merci.
Ça paraît rien, mais il y a plein, on a souvent une pensée assez analytique et il y a plein de personnes qui arrivent sur un lieu avec plein d'idées. Alors moi, ouais, je veux une serre et puis je veux un petit habitat insolite, etc., etc., et qui vont essayer de placer leurs éléments sur le lieu. Et c'est pas la bonne approche. Ça, c'est plus de la colonisation intellectuelle qu'autre chose. Il faut d'abord essayer de sentir quels sont les grands trajets, quelles sont les grandes formes, quels sont les grands, voilà, sur les grands mécanismes qui régissent ce lieu. Et de là, petit à petit, ça va nous induire à dire, bah, ça, c'est une zone de collecte d'énergie. Quelle énergie? L'eau. Ah ben, du coup, c'est une zone qui peut être liée, j'en sais rien, à la phytoépuration, à différentes choses, etc. Mais on part de l'observation et de ces grands principes pour aller vers qu'est-ce qui s'y trouve, pas le contraire. Voilà.
C'est intéressant. Ça fait quoi? Un truc que je lisais ce matin, c'était une coach qui, justement, dans son approche, n'est pas du tout dans l'approche intellectuelle et mentale de un objectif financier, un plan d'action, machin. Ce principe-là, ça revient à partir du cœur, en fait, lâcher les questions, l'analyse, regarder ce qui est. Et à partir de là, avancer petit à petit, quoi, en fait, hein.
Mm, mm,
Mm. Ok, bah écoute,
exactement.
ça va, c'est clair, hein. Merci.
Et c'est très important ce que tu dis, partir de ce qui est et de ce qui vibre aussi, de ce qui est en vie.
Et c'est ça, en fait, de ce qui vibre, parce que autant là pour mais que ce soit là pour le jardin, qu'est-ce qui, par exemple, qu'est-ce qui appelle, hein, tu vois, qu'est-ce qui se présente, qu'est-ce qui
Mm,
vient à nous, plutôt que d'élaborer tout un plan, mais qui est vachement limité, en fait, et
mm.
limitant. Mm. Ok. Est-ce qu'on a le temps de regarder l'autre?
On peut en parler. J'ai donné une petite minute à. Là, je viens d'envoyer le message qui restait une minute. Donc, ça serait le 7, tu disais? Ah
Oui,
non, non, c'était le
le,
4.
ouais,
Appliquer l'autorégulation, accepter la rétroaction.
ouais, alors ça, je comprends pas trop. Je reviens à
Hmm.
le zoom. Ah,
Oui, moi je
ouais.
trouve qu'ils sont pas si anodins que ça, les patterns de Holmgren et qui sont empreints de beaucoup de sagesse. Bon, autorégulation, ça voudrait dire quoi pour toi?
Bah, se réguler par soi-même, hein.
Hmm.
Et c'était quoi le début du principe?
S'appliquer l'autorégulation et accepter la rétroaction.
Ouais, alors c'est plus la deuxième partie, accepter la rétroaction, que je saisis pas bien.
Hmm. L'idée serait La rétroaction, déjà, c'est l'idée de feedback en anglais, c'est-à-dire que je me suis régulé, j'ai posé un design et je commence à agir sur mon lieu. Au bout
D'accord.
de quelques semaines, quelques mois, quelques années, la nature va me répondre. C'est-à-dire que concrètement, peut-être que la biodiversité va revenir en masse et que j'aurai une super production, mais peut-être qu'il va y
Mhm.
avoir des problèmes, peut-être que des arbres vont tomber malades, peut-être que je vais avoir au contraire j'en sais rien, une transformation des sols qui n'était pas prévue, etc.
D'accord.
Quoi qu'il arrive, ce n'est pas bon ou mauvais en fait. C'est juste une rétroaction qu'il faut accepter
Mm.
et qui rentre dans le cadre aussi de s'autoréguler. Ça
D'accord.
veut dire que, comme disait Pietro, on explore. Donc, on lance quelque chose et le design, c'est un peu comme une expression mathématique. Et puis, voilà, on lance quelque chose et on ne sait pas où ça va aller parce on va dire, il y a un nombre de causes pour produire une conséquence qui est juste gigantesque, donc c'est hors de
Mm.
contrôle.
Mm.
Donc, l'agriculture conventionnelle cherche à mettre du contrôle, donc à simplifier le nombre de variables. Une plante, des sols d'aide de toute autre vie, etc. Comme ça, finalement, on a le contrôle sur deux, trois variables.
Mm.
Alors que là, on essaie d'être dans la diversité la plus totale, donc on est forcé de lâcher le contrôle. On est forcé de mettre l'inconnu au centre, l'inconnu mathématique, l'inconnu mystère, etc., tout ce qu'on veut, et d'avancer et d'accepter les rétroactions qui vont être en fait la façon dont on va danser avec le lieu. C'est-à-dire que concrètement, il va falloir, comme en danse, il va falloir se réajuster à son partenaire continuellement.
Mm.
Et en ça, bah, le lieu n'a pas d'autre possibilité que de parfois nous envoyer des petites tapes amicales, mais des trucs de dire ça ne va pas.
Mm.
Et ça peut être un petit éboulement à un endroit, etc. et tout. Mais ça doit toujours être pris comme une indication qui va parfaire notre compréhension du lieu et qui va nous amener vers un design de plus en plus optimum.
Comme
Donc,
les sangliers, là, l'autre jour,
exactement. Exactement.
le feedback, il n'y avait pas les plantes qui repoussent les sangliers et débarquent. On a, mais bah, vous, pour l'instant, j'ai rien fait, donc vous améliorez.
Ouais, puis
Oui.
du coup, ils nous ont montré là où il y avait de l'énergie, donc quelles étaient les techniques qui fonctionnaient plutôt pas mal.
Mm.
Ils nous ont rappelé notre devoir aussi de sécuriser, c'est-à-dire qu'on peut le prendre, être catastrophé, etc. Mais finalement, c'est en plein
Mm.
hiver, donc c'est l'occasion pour les sols d'être un peu réchauffés par la lumière, etc. C'est l'occasion de planter des engrais verts et tout. Donc, ils nous ont précipité dans l'action, les bonnes actions à faire pendant l'hiver, restructurer un petit peu et tout. Et ils nous ont rappelé on n'a toujours pas clôturé en bas et que ça, un jour, je serais un enfant un peu rebelle qui part un peu vexé, etc. et tout, et qui descend, etc. et tout, voilà. Et donc, toujours cette idée de non-dualité, en fait, c'est ni positif ni négatif. C'est sûr que c'est un peu impressionnant et que ça provoque certaines actions à faire, mais c'est aussi peut-être l'intelligence de la vie et de ce lieu qui
Mm.
manifeste à un moment donné ce qu'il faut qui doit arriver pour nous faire avancer dans une meilleure direction. Donc,
Mhm.
c'est en ça que on- avoir un design, ce n'est pas avoir déterminé un plan d'action, l'appliquer et c'est fini. C'est rentrer
Mm.
dans une danse avec le lieu et il y aura toujours une rétroaction. Et cette rétroaction nous conduira toujours de plus en plus, va réaffiner notre design.
Mm. Mm.
Voilà. C'est, c'est aussi un petit peu comment dire, des perses glamour, un peu. C'est un peu aussi pour éviter l'écueil un peu ingénierique de dire à partir du moment, à partir du moment où on a fini notre design, ça y est, il n'y a plus qu'à l'implémenter, tout roulera pour toujours très bien.
Ouais.
C'est pas comme ça.
Mm. D'accord.
Ok, je vais permettre à tout le monde de se réunir et puis on va partager sur tout ça.
Bah, merci, Olivier.
C'est cool. Bisous à toutes. Alors, coucou Yann,
Salut, vous
ça va bien?
m'entendez? Ouais. Ouais, salut Olivier.
Super, bah, bienvenue dans ma salle de bain.
Ouais.
Mon fils dort, donc
Ah
on
merde,
me
d'accord.
tranche. Le temps que les autres arrivent, je te fais vite un petit récap de ce qu'on a vu. J'ai
Ouais.
juste raconté l'histoire de Athéna et Poséidon avec la naissance d'Athènes. Je ne sais pas si tu connais cette histoire.
Non.
Non, bon bah écoute, éventuellement tu checkeras juste, coucou, tu checkeras juste le début de l'enregistrement, mais voilà, c'est pour moi la première trace de permaculture dans, dans l'histoire de l'humanité. Et de là,
D'accord.
pour parler rapidement du fait que les principes de Holmgren, ils découlent de l'observation méticuleuse et très scientifique de l'écosystème tasmanien et de la diversité, de la biomasse continuelle qui s'y crée, de la résilience, de la beauté, de la richesse de cet écosystème, et du coup d'essayer d'en tirer des principes qui seraient réplicables et applicables dans d'autres domaines même que le lien direct au végétal. Et c'est comme ça que sont nés 12 principes qu'on a un peu étudiés ensemble. Donc là, chaque groupe a pris un ou deux principes, à essayer un petit peu de voir comment il les comprenait. On va faire maintenant un petit retour sur tout ça. Et il en a même traduit ce qu'on appelle la fleur de la permaculture, un peu dans le même ouvrage, qui disait en fait permaculture, des principes qui vont au-delà de la durabilité. Et du coup, voilà, je vais continuer en anglais, mais ça va être un peu ça. So I was
Ok.
just sharing with Yann, mais il n'y avait pas encore Adna, donc je vais continuer en anglais.
Salut Yann.
Il y a cette idée aussi
Salut.
d'aller au-delà de la... Vas-y, je vous laisse vous saluer, pardon.
Ok.
Il y avait cette idée d'aller au-delà de la durabilité. Pourquoi? Parce que la permaculture va essayer d'aller au-delà de la conservation de l'environnement, mais va essayer de l'aggrader. Donc, quand on a un sol, on va essayer non seulement, effectivement, de ne pas polluer ce sol, de ne pas le rendre plus sec, de ne pas le rendre moins vivant, mais on va aussi et surtout essayer de l'aggrader. Et quand on se penche sur la question de l'eau, on va essayer bien sûr de limiter notre consommation d'eau, mais on va essayer d'en stocker, d'en créer une forme de, une forme de réserve. Et bref, où que se pose la question de la permaculture, elle va essayer d'aggrader. Pourquoi? Parce que elle a eu ce constat qu'à un moment donné, on allait vers une détérioration de la biosphère qui ferait qu'il faudrait autre chose qu'un développement durable. Il faudrait aussi trouver les moyens de réparer. Et c'est le principe de ces principes, le principe de ces principes. L'idée derrière ces principes, c'est justement d'avoir une action non seulement conservatrice, mais aussi aggravante. So I was just sharing with Jan that this book from David Holmgren is about pathway beyond sustainability, because we are in an approach that is designed not only to sustain, but also to regenerate. And so each principle is there to repair, because permaculture is born towards the end of the 20th century, 1970s. And so there was already an acknowledgement of the damages of the biosphere and the need to regenerate it. And the regeneration principle of permaculture come from direct observation of especially forest ecosystems. So is there anyone willing to share about the principle? Or maybe let's do it another way. I will take the principle and I will share briefly about each. But before my sharing, I would love to hear if any group has worked on the principle, so he tells us what he has found. So first principle will be to observe and interact. Anyone has worked on this one? No. Okay, the first principle of permaculture, and the key and was the name of the first module, is to observe. And it seems obvious, but it's really completely different. The observation in permaculture and the regular observation are different. It's not about observing a plan or a Google map from above, etc. It's about really a fine observation that will take all our senses, including intuition. It will be a holistic observation of the land. And it's long. If possible, when you arrive on the land, it is advised that you can at least wait for 1 year to see your land at all seasons, during rain or sun or snow or wind or whatever, and that you can observe and drink your land and let the land really get familiar with your land. And that's the kind of observation we talk about here. It's not about just a quick observation of a plan. And interact is this idea I shared with Aude of entering a dance with the land. It's not about reflecting and imposing your way to your land. It's about entering an exploration, and you will try something, and so you will be interacting with the land, and the land will give you a feedback, and you will interact again. And all throughout this feedback loop, you will have observation, constant observation. That's why also we tend to spend so much time in the field, or so much time wandering on our land, also watering with our hose, etc., instead of just going automatic, etc., because we want to spend time and observe with the heart, with the eyes, with the fingers. When you meet a permaculturist, when Antoine Talin, for example, came to the garden, he puts his fingers in the soil and waits to contact the worms, etc. So it's a really holistic observation and the beginning of an interaction that has no ending, a dance with the land, like I used to say. Catch and store energy. Anyone has worked on this one? No? Okay. Which kind of energy can we be talking about? What do you think? Go ahead. What can we store?
Every kind of energy.
Every kind. Sure. So if we go into examples, what kinds?
Sunlight?
Sorry?
Sunlight, maybe? Energy from the sun?
Sunlight, yes.
Ah, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm pretty low on the volume because of my son, but I will. Yes, we will catch the sun, and that's a beautiful example, because what do you guys have in mind when Anna speaks about sunlight, catching sunlight?
Creating electricity
Electricity, solar panels,
and heat.
and heat to have warm showers in the Petit Pessicart.
Exactly.
And normally we tend to completely forget that every single plant, leaf, whatever, is performing this all the time. It is catching sunlight to perform photosynthesis and thus breathing and breathing back oxygen for us and breathing in CO2, etc. So it's complete biomimicry. A single solar panel is just the expression of this beauty of the constant collection of the sunlight through the vegetable kingdom, which is just tremendous. It is the key. It's one essential basis of life on Earth. This constant catching and storage of energy. It is the storage also of the water that we can perform through the various mulch and the various more technical collection of the roof, etc. It's the energy also as nutrients in the soil and the development of the mycorrhizas. It's the storage of information. Maybe you know in physics there is this KMS state that for each information there is an equivalent energy. And so information is potential energy. So it's a really vast and wild view of energy and the catching and storage that invites this. And so I'll let your imagination go with it, but we have to be really open-minded in our ways to catch energy with this, and also to catch human energy. Like, for example, all these kids, how do we catch the energy and how do we store it somehow so that it is, I don't know, so they are building up some reserves for their own knowledge and experience in the garden, etc. So it's also about collecting and storing the human energy. Obtain a yield. What do you think? Jan, you may be speaking, but you're muted.
Yes, no, sorry, I was just checking, trying to find the principle
Okay, no,
on
I thought you were
Wikipedia.
speaking to us, so
But no, yes, on this one, I wonder what mean yield. I thought about an open field, but maybe it's not that.
a yield basically is a production. It's a harvest, and it's quite a pragmatic principle, but it's about you won't be supporting your land and thriving and be happy if you have an empty stomach. So it's a reminder that all this is beautiful, but we definitely have to include the generation of food for the human communities. And so this, for example, when I watch our city of Nice and I watch the plan for vegetalization, which is great, it's beautiful to put so many trees in center town, but I observe complete lack of the function of edible, or so it's to remind that any interaction we have with the land should add this function of providing food for humanities, and remember the ethic of fair share, food also for birds, and food for boars, and food for worms, and food for bees, etc. So obtain a yield is about really remembering that nature has a tremendous opportunity to create biomass, but with a few decisions from us in our design, we can orient this biomass towards something to eat for all the rains.
And
This one, yes.
yeah, also maybe it's just the satisfaction to obtain something from our garden. It's a real joy, and it's more than the food. It's bigger than this. The satisfaction you get when you see some fruits or some vegetables in your garden, and when you see the nature give you something, I think obtain a yield is also that,
Sure.
to get this satisfaction.
Sure. And what I share is my view on the Holmgren principle, which is quite colored by the transmission I received from his principle and from various teachers, etc. But there is no right or wrong answers. Like we can see those principles in a huge variety of ways that each are good. It's not to say that I hold any kind of truth about them or something. So thank you for any time you would like to comment. Odd, we spoke about this one, apply self-regulation and accept feedback. Do you want to go ahead?
I think it's not a question. Okay. So it's from patterns to details, right?
No, it's apply self-regulation and accept feedback.
Okay, so yeah, let me just think a moment. And accept. Oh, I have a kind of a gap. Yes, the principle, I have to self-regulation and accept. Oh, yes, it was about the fact that the system, or anyway, nature needs time. And well, it will get that nature anyway will give us a feedback at a moment. And how I don't, maybe it's better if it's you, because I can't re-say it, you know. I had it when we were talking about it, but now I'm like I don't make it.
Anyone else willing to share on this one, having worked on it? So basically, yes.
Okay, so
Vas-y.
Okay. Okay, I give it a try. So what I understand by that is self-regulation is we gotta manage ourselves, maybe our own expectation and needs, adapt them to the system, and at the same time accept the feedback. Then while if something like I guess it ties with observe and interact, like if we observe that something works or does not work well, especially if it doesn't work well, then to realize it, accept it, and then try to work around it. So it's like having maybe keeping an open mind, and at the same time, I guess be flexible also oneself.
Thank you.
Yes, what I understood when with this principle is also regarding the human capacity and the physical capacity to manage the garden, and the dimension of the garden regarding 1 people, 2 people, 10 people, a team, and the time you have to stay at the garden, and everything is important, and you have to find the right dimension, not to be too exhausted at the end of the day, and to be the garden should be big enough to nourish you. So this is very important to apply self-regulation and accept feedback. I think feedback should be also mistakes and thing you don't imagine or you don't think about, and you have to be very to observe everything again, the answer of the nature.
Thank you. Good.
Now I remember about the boars at the garden, and that's what you said. So whatever is the feedback, it's a good thing because it gives information about the actions that have to be settled, I would say. So it's always a teaching. So I really join Christian and Philippe about what you said, and I remember the example of the boars and what they taught you at the garden. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's pretty hard. I won't stay long on it. I just remember Pietro and his demonstration about syntropy and entropy, and he explained like giving too much energy creates resonance and is not good for the system, or too few and regeneration doesn't occur. So self-regulation is really about what you shared, I feel, Philippe. It's not about us burning ourselves in the first 2 years and having nothing more in the mind, in the heart, or in the body afterwards to continue. It's also about working with nature and being helped, and the help sometimes comes as a bad surprise, like a small slope went down, the boars came or something, but it's always an indication of something that can be, like you say, like improved, enhanced. And in this, it's like the Mollison principle, like the problem is the solution. The problem indicates a way to enhance the design and gives more and more information about the land. So it's not that the design is a plan that we do once and for all. It's a dance, and we interact and we have a feedback and we refine, etc., etc. And observation is all the way through, like use and value renewable resources and services. This one feels quite obvious. Anyone willing to share about it?
I could comment. Thinking about with this one, like understanding the value of something that is able to be renewed and using that instead of using something that is a finite resource that will be depleted over time. I think this is so important in order to be able to sustain life for the amount of time we have left, and to carry on and for the next generations.
Thank you. This feels obvious for many things, like renewable energies, for example. There is, I feel, a beautiful application and quite interesting in terms of land design is about what vegetables do we plant. And if I think about the annuals, there is a huge cycle that don't make them as renewable as perennials, for example. We can collect the seed perfectly and go into renewable, sure, but there is also a possibility that we don't collect the seeds and just go and buy new seeds, etc. Yeah, it's about basically about putting everything we can into circularity, like you said, Hannah. It's about making a kind of constant observation on where do we have eventual definite waste or something that we cannot use anymore, and try to find a way to put it back in the loop. So that's a lot about a way to design and a design technique that we'll surely see during the next couple of modules. But there is a way to put circularity like there is in nature, which is basically about very linked to the next one. Produce no waste, which goes with it. It's about circularity. Anyone willing to say something more about use and value renewable resources and services and produce no waste?
No.
Also keep in mind the wide range of application of permaculture. Renewable services, for example, will be the case. I take the Jardin Petit Pessicart, for example. It's tremendous to have someone come one time and do a tremendous workshop. But renewable will be like, maybe we enter into something different with these people, and maybe it comes once a month or once a year, and then something builds up that makes not a collection of various one-time events, which is cool, but more like a curve of progress and experience that makes that the transmission gets better, the public benefits from more and more deep transmission, the land benefits from this also. So we can go also towards finance and see also how we can put finance in loop. And that's also one concrete application would be the complementary money. And Rob Hopkins, who used them in the transition movement, is a permaculturist. So renewable and not producing waste or not going to final disappearance from the system, like euro that you give to your people on your land or your community, but is spent for a car being built in Japan. Well, complementary money that makes it that you can reuse it and spend it on the territory or on the land is also an application of a permaculture principle. Hope I am pretty clear. Design from patterns to detail. No, I'm not looking at you.
Yeah. So the important is to observe first the patterns, and from the patterns, then going more and more into the details, and not to analyze or think, but just look at what is, accept what is, and then go into it to I would say to dive into the pattern, and then yes, from the pattern we will have the information of what is to be done. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else willing to comment on this one? There is an image that is really nice. Like if you take a jar and you have big rocks and small rocks and sand to put inside, you will, if you put sand first, you won't have the room to put the rocks, and especially the bigger ones. If you put first the big rocks in your jar, then the small rocks will go in between and the sand will use the last spaces. So we designed from the biggest patterns into the details for the reason that you mentioned. There are shapes in the land. There is what we call also a dream of the land. The land makes something possible and don't allow for something else. And going against the dream of the land is the complete opposite of permaculture, where we try, remember Mollison, to have the greater effect with the least effort. So when we go into the sense of the pattern, we use the line of least effort, because the pattern, whether it is this kind of spiral pattern, whether it is a network to distribute energy, whether it is small dunes that show us that there is wind at this place or something, they indicate us the natural way that this land is working with energies, with wind, with water, with the living. And so we can serve this if we use the patterns, or we can go against, and it's tremendous efforts, and we should save our efforts for where they are really needed. So we observe, and we observe the main shapes, and like you said, some shapes will indicate what is possible, what is not. Someone willing to do cereals and acquiring the land of the Jardin de Petit Pessicart will have difficulties. And so it's about us also not imposing our will on the land, but really interacting and trying to find balance between our dream and the dream of the land, what the land makes it possible or not, and that we can understand by watching the patterns. Integrate rather than separate.
Yeah, I picked this one. So I think the idea behind this is that in a system, if you want the components to work well together, if you want the system to thrive, you want to favor the interaction between the parts, and that they have synergistic interaction with one another. And for that, they should be interacting, and they should cooperate with one another instead of being secluded from one another, separated, and or working against each other or in totally different direction. So what comes to mind for me maybe you have an area with chickens, and you have a fence around, and on the other side you have maybe your food forest, or an area where you're planting something. And if you keep these two separated at all time, then you're losing on potential benefits that you will have of sometimes letting the chicken at the right time move in the other area, and maybe like eating some insects there and some weeds, and also leaving some manure, and then and that would be good then for this area for regrowth. So yeah, that's the idea I got from this.
Thank you. Beautiful. Anyone else? Yeah, I have this, of course, this image of, like you said, like monoculture, when we separate the crops, and biodiversity and integration of the various species that creates all this synergistic interaction. I have this image also of the various permaculture centers I have visited in Europe, no, in Asia also, where it's porous, like no permaculture center that I know is secluded from the rest of the world. It integrates the neighborhood. I remember this huge center in Algarve in Portugal, which hold one of the few international convergence of permaculture in Europe. And they are making pizzas each Sunday evening with the neighbors, and neighbors are completely integrated, even though they don't really participate in the life of the land. And nonetheless, they have integrated their neighborhoods. And it's an approach that really feels the design don't stop at the borders of the land, but there are various scales. There is the scale of one zone, but the zone is not separated from other zones. It's integrated in one design, and the design of the land is integrated in the neighborhood design and in the territory design and so forth. And thus it creates a network where boundaries are more like interfaces, but they are not walls. And it's really from the human permaculture side, from the crops side, from everything. It's really a key principle. Use small and slow solutions, and this one can cause debate. No one? Okay. Do you guys know about slow tech or low techs? Slow technology, yeah?
Yeah, we study at sustainable design school, of course.
Okay. Do you want to say a few words about them, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Like for me, it's low tech and also just like small and slow solutions value. I think they value taking your time and being more patient, and also like seeing, I don't know, like I think like low tech for me is the opposite of these like very high tech solutions when it comes to like sustainability. They're like very intensive and from my perspective don't necessarily they actually aren't as productive as we think, because they're using so many resources to work. So I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Thank you. I have also one kind of, I have difficulties with this principle, and I share with my teachers or colleagues for some time, like is when I feel into the kind of emergency state we're in, I tend to struggle with it and say we have to act fast, man. And at the same time, when I use it, and I try to do now on 3 projects I have, I feel that there is a holding by going not to immediate manifestations, etc., that gives a kind of maturation that is really important. Going fast, we manifest fast, but we manifest partially, only what is really the core purpose, or what can be brought through a project, through a zone, through whatever. So use small and slow solution is about also this idea of range. In Le Bec et Loin, which is a tremendous example of permaculture, they have first worked on a really tiny parts and made sure they were like going deep with the land relation and mastering what they were doing on 1,000 square meters, which is really small. But now they are on 1 hectare, but with the intensity and the mastery they had on 1,000. And it's tremendous because it's the idea also of fractal. On 1,000 square meters, they were having such a production, because they had self-regulated, remember the second principle, and they had put like a scale to their action, and they could do more. So that's the English motto of less is more. And indeed, permaculture invites us to essentialize. There is also this idea of zone. There is a center to a land. There is a center to our life. And the more we get far away from the center, the more effort it requires. So if we take the full charge on our land, on our life, with many projects and zones and side projects, etc., we tend to demultiply, and we won't be going into the depth of a single one, maybe. So it's an invitation to essentialize and walk at the pace of matter and the pace of nature, and counterbalancing it, like both are equivalent. Also, like we also see beautiful solution like syntropy, etc., that somehow also accelerate regeneration of the soil, regeneration of forest, but maybe also because they have limited their range of action into one technique, and they go really in depth into that technique. There is also quality of life also, and going slowly, reflecting slowly in a group work, etc. There is something that's I think for me, like I go really into my opinion, is somehow the antidote to this modern race life is, with the Black Fridays and the rush to be on time at the job, etc., and the rush for the kids, etc. And I feel permaculture and nature invite us to change the rhythm, and that allows a different observation, a different reflection, a different design, etc. Use and value diversity shouldn't cause debate this time.
I can talk again, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, someone go. Okay. I like this one a lot. I think that in an ecosystem, each part has its own role to play, and the fact that each part of an ecosystem is different from the other part, and that it has its own talents and its own abilities. When you integrate that all into a whole, everything is so much more stronger and works together to create much more than just if you were working on your own.
It's like the placenta around the trees, for example.
Yeah. For those who didn't come back to Jardin Pessicart, when the boars came, we took the opportunity with Pietro to implement the first small example of placenta around the almond tree. And basically there is around the almond tree 5 or 6 plants together, which is much. There are, I think, 2 or 3 coriander. There are 1 consoude, 1 calamine. There are a few aromatics, and it's a lot, and it can put much more, like 30, 40 in around one tree. And it's to use the diversity and what each plant will bring to the overall, and what the synergistic interaction will bring to the whole, etc. And yeah, I feel there is also something that relates to this idea of individuation, or like expertise of one plant or one zone or one element or one human being in the system. And yeah, to really value this specific, like Anna said, like this specific quality of expertise, and which is at the opposite of going towards a kind of uniformity. So it's really about bringing high up the contrast instead of going gray everywhere, which turns back also to the syntropy, entropy. You remember, entropy is like a kind of uniformity, like put a few boiling water in the bath and you will have a warm bath in 10 minutes. And so diversity has to be maintained, and we have to put back diversity again and again if needed, or to prepare some system that will enhance biodiversity by themselves.
I wanted to also add something maybe.
Yeah.
So from what I recall also is with a high diversity, if the relationships are also not symbiotic, well, if they're working together, then you also have a higher resilience, and that reminds me of Morrison's principles of with each function being fulfilled by several agents, and each agent fulfilling several functions. And so with this high diversity and also high well, everyone being able to fulfill different functions, then if there's like some crisis like a drought or a flood, then there's always some part of the system that are still working and functional, and makes it more likely for the whole system to stay alive, essentially.
Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful example. Diversity in the sense of the diversity of function for one element, etc. Yeah. All right. Use edges and value the marginal. So I explained that the principles were extracted from long studies and careful studies about the natural ecosystems. And we spoke about that, I think, last time. If you go into nature and you measure how many species you have, vegetables or animals, in a pond, in a lake, and how much you have in the forest nearby. And then you measure what you have in this kind of border that is at the same time the lake ecosystem, but overlapping with the forest ecosystem. And this zone of overlap is way more dynamic and living, and there is way more biodiversity than in the two others, even combined. And that what we call the margin effect. So if we think of this in terms of design, we will tend to try to benefit from the dynamics of those zones, and even maybe to create more of those zones. So that's also in the idea of diversity. Creating a pond will create various microclimates in your land. So you create a diversity. And around those ponds, you will create a zone where you will see more variety of flowers, more variety of bees, more. And that's applied to almost all details of your zones. You create edges, you create more zones just by your design. You increase the dynamics, the biodiversity of your place, and the life dynamics of your place, of your land, just by the design of your borders. And that seems almost magical. But that's also one more pragmatic explanation to why in permaculture do we see so often those kind of weird shapes. Why don't they just do a square for this tree and this? Because the longer the perimeter, the more the margin effect. And this for one zone, but this for all the zones on your land. Can you imagine the effect that you have by creating more diversity and more of those zones of margin? a huge trend also in permaculture nowadays, and Antoine Tallin, for example, is one really good example of this, is what we call in French les haies comestibles, so the edible edges, which make also like, okay, an edge will be in the crossroads, so in the overlapping zone of two various zones. So one is I don't know, more forest, etc., and the other is more like a meadow, etc. And there is a small wooden fence with a lot of kiwis and vines, etc. And it blossoms. Why? Because we put it in the zone of overlap. So create zones of overlap and use them, plant there, use them at their best. It's also the case in human permaculture and social permaculture. If we see like a rich neighborhood and everything is really clean, etc., and you see a more popular neighborhood, and you have this zone, it's really sensible, for example, in Paris, etc., and you have a zone where there is so much creativity in the shops, in the way the aliveness of the streets, and the quality of the events, etc. Maybe you've seen that in the life of towns. So it works also on the structure of our social tissues. Creatively use and respond to change, and we will go to a closer on this one. Is there anyone willing to share on this one?
We choose this one with Michael. I just thought about our yesterday discussion regarding the project of the Jardin and the change of the climate, and begin to be warmer and warmer. So the project is to put some plants, subtropical plants, to be adapted in a few years to the next climate. So for me, it was a perfect example of this principle.
Thank you. Yeah, this also what I feel permaculture is such a beautiful gift in this period of time, is that it starts with observation. So it starts somehow with the unknown at the center and not the planification or control at the center. And so it enhances imagination, creativity, agility. And so, surprise are the recipe of life and of happiness, maybe. And so we will love surprises. There is this capacity of psychological rebound that is really in permaculture, and it sounds funny, but it's also a deep pillar of transition, because I feel it's about psychological resilience. It's also in this idea of the problem is the solution, and we have a variety of options, of psychological ways to apprehend an event on our land or larger. And if we use it as an ability to reinvent, to enhance the design, to use our creativity, and if we tend to generalize this attitude, we will create communities that have this agility and this capacity to also act without dramatizing too much what happens, which is beautiful. Like when the kids discovered the boars, they were really upset, etc. But at the end of the day, we had restructured the land and planted lavender. Said it's fucking cool. We have no lavender here, and in 1 or 2 months we will have baby lavender, etc. And it's just a tiny small example, but like keeping in mind that each event is an ability to enhance things is something that is really central in permaculture. All right. how do you guys feel? Do you feel the Holmgren principles are the set of tools is interesting and you like discovering it or not? I'm really open to feedback.
Yes,
To me, it makes it-
maybe. Oh, sorry.
You go first.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Yes, so for me, thank you for your examples, Olivier, because for me it's still it was a bit theoretical before. So I was reading them, you know, but of course we need examples and illustrations to understand more. So that's why I was reading a French translation at the same time and trying to see a bit of more examples. And but yeah, and my impression is that the heart of the principle, you know, the core of the principles is pretty easy to understand anyway. So yeah, that's pretty how can I say intuitive, you know, intuitive. Yeah, the intuition says the same, so it's okay.
Thank you.
And sorry for have not much reaction. I'm very tired tonight, so after a long weekend. So
All good, all good. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I'm eager and curious to put them into practice now. Yeah.
Next module.
Yeah.
Yes, and also I think they are all connected together. All the principle we can rely them in every sense, but they are deeply connected.
Yeah, they are a system indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, I also agree with Jan that they are quite intuitive, and that's why I found them also quite beautiful. Like I was already a bit acquainted with them before, but when I first read about them, it was like yeah, I kind of felt like relieved that something was like matching my own intuition, and that it was also shared with other people out there. And they are very beautiful principle, and they just make a lot of sense to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was really nice getting to hear you talk about them and give more explanation. And I feel like I see a lot of opportunity to apply this to things beyond just permaculture, to our own lives. And so I think that's pretty cool too. There's a lot of parallels.
Thank you. Mika, ça va? Ça t'a intéressé? Tu as pu attraper un peu sur l'anglais et tout ça? Je t'envoie une petite demande de... Tu es mute, enfin tu es silencieux. Un petit bouton à cliquer tout en bas à gauche sur le micro. Oui.
Ah, ça y est,
Voilà.
ça fonctionne.
Coucou.
Ouais, je suis toujours pas trop à l'aise avec l'anglais, donc je me suis pris des notes et puis je vais retravailler ça par la suite. Et puis voilà, après, sinon, impatient de mettre tout ça en pratique. Hein, voilà, donc voilà.
On peut se passer un petit coup de fil si tu veux d'ici au module 2 pour en parler ensemble en français.
Ouais. Ok, ça marche. Je travaille un peu là-dessus et puis on s'appelle.
Cool. Okay, so I won't grab any more of your time in this end of the weekend. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to be with you again for the module 2. There will be a couple of events. We will post it in the Telegram thread if you want to come to the garden, which is really beautiful with this kind of winter spring season. And we may have a good news. So it's really conditional. There is no certainty about this, but we may organize the module 2 with a land journey and journeying together on the Saturday in Italy, and to see 2 designs from Pietro, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, around Andorra and other places, and eat together in Italy. And so we can see really beautiful advanced example of the work of Pietro with his various techniques, take a few notes and inspiration. And the day after in the garden, we generalize, we understand, we understand more, and we go towards application on the case study of the garden. So we will let you know if this happened this way, but with Ludivine and Pietro, we are working towards this. And so in which case we will organize, of course, carpool, and we will organize transport so that it's the least difficult and for everyone. All right.
Olivier, I have just a last question.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't used really before the space, the drive you put in place. But is it the Framavox?
Yes.
That's the Framavox link, and is it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So that's right. I will try to get on it and see. And we can add the documentation as well if we find something interesting.
Sure. And yeah, if you feel like there is something missing, like a specific topic is missing or something, just let us know. And you have also you have various buttons, and when you put on fichier or files, then you see all the files that have been uploaded in all the various discussions, so you don't have to search it discussion by discussion. So it's quite convenient. And yeah, I will dive into this before the module 2 also to make it more complete. But if you have any difficulty with it, you can get in touch through the group or directly with me on Telegram, and I will help.
Okay. Ouais, super, merci.
Welcome, je t'en prie. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Olivier, and everyone else also. And yeah, that sounds good. Also, what you said about this meetup. You said it will be like after the. When would that be?
Maybe the Saturday. So we have 18 and 19 February for the course, and maybe the Saturday 18th will be not in the garden, but in Italy, like in 2 projects of Pietro.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Olivier, it's not in March, it would be in February.
February, I said March, I'm sorry. No.
So it's February, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was March when you mentioned it last time.
Wait, you're right.
You talked about
You're
third
right.
module.
Next one is about ecosystemic design, and this one would be about placenta. So I'm sorry. Thank you, Odd. I am a bit tired.
March, right?
It will be for not the module 2, but for the module 3. I'm sorry. All right. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. I will go now because I have to sleep.
We will all go, I think.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Merci.
Bye.